Hey everybody, it's Nathan Selove with another episode of Autism Actually Speaking. Today I want to talk about a topic that I probably should have done earlier, but here we go. De-stigmatizing therapy. People in therapy, or people that feel that they need therapy, are often too afraid to admit it because there's this weird taboo regarding therapy. Statements like, "I'm not crazy, I don't need therapy," or "my childhood was fine," or "there's nothing wrong with me," are often used to justify this lack of normalization of therapy. And a lot of that stems from the fact that we live in an ableist society. Disability is considered bad, and therapy is associated with disability, therefore therapy must be bad. So a lot of the need to destigmatize therapy comes from the need to destigmatize disability. So first I want to talk about destigmatizing therapy when it comes specifically to disability. If a person has a physical disability that makes it so that they can't walk, and they need a wheelchair for that, people can usually logically see why that wheelchair is needed. But if someone has a mental disability, unless they need therapy for it, somehow that's seen as less legitimate. But both of them come with some kind of struggle, and whether a struggle is a physical barrier or a mental barrier, it's still legitimate. Therefore, using therapy to help with something like autism should be seen as no more taboo than using a wheelchair to help someone with cerebral palsy. But even if you don't have a disability, that doesn't necessarily mean that therapy is useless to you. There are lots of reasons why people go to therapy. Sometimes it is because of a disability. Sometimes it's to work through some kind of past or present trauma. Sometimes it's to get through some kind of tough life event. Or sometimes it's just to discuss the difficult challenges that people face in everyday life. And none of those should be seen as wrong or shameful. When it comes to people's physical health, we recognize that some people know more than others about physical health. That's why we go to doctors. Now, sometimes we can deal with some kind of physical injury or physical issue by ourselves, but sometimes we need a doctor. Sometimes we need to talk to someone who's an actual expert. So why don't we view mental health the same way? Sure, sometimes we can deal with certain mental issues ourselves, and sometimes we seek the help of other people that aren't necessarily professionals, but we know well. But sometimes we should seek professional help, and that is not a bad thing. That is not shameful, and it should not be considered taboo. I'd also like to point out another barrier that exists that prevents a lot of people from seeking mental health treatment, and that's financial status. Some people just can't afford to go to therapy. And I would say that this represents another societal problem. People need to be given the resources in order to access high-quality, affordable mental health treatment. And in order to do that, we need to have organizations that provide those resources. And also social programs. So vote with your dollars and vote with your vote. Also, sometimes people give up on mental health treatment because they had a bad experience with a mental health professional. And sometimes certain mental health professionals just aren't for you. They don't specialize in the things that you need. That doesn't necessarily mean that therapy as a whole is bad for you. It just means that you need to make sure to find the right therapist. I mean, if a person has a bad experience with a doctor that say they broke their leg and the doctor didn't do a good job of stitching it back up, they're not going to be like, well, the next time I break my leg, I guess I'll just deal with it myself. I would not be where I am without my therapist. I would not have been able to graduate high school, go to college, and even get a master's degree if it weren't for my therapist. If I didn't have help along the way, I wouldn't have been able to get through a lot of the barriers that I had. And I am not ashamed to say that I needed help along the way. And no one should be ashamed of that. So if you're in therapy, good. You should feel proud of that. You should feel good about the fact that you are able to take the initiative to help with your own mental health. If you're not in therapy and you think it might be right for you, make sure to find the right therapist. And if you can't get therapy because you can't afford it, that is an issue that society needs to work on. And like I said, we need to fix that through organizations and even with our votes. So if you have a therapy story, then I encourage you to leave a comment down below and tell other people about it. Let other people know that it's not something that needs to be stigmatized. The more people that are open about the fact that they are in therapy, the more people will realize that that's not something that should be seen as taboo. Well, that's today's video. Thank you all for watching. If you liked this episode, give it a like, a share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Check out some of my other stuff. And in the meantime, if you have any questions or topics you'd like addressed, please leave them in the comments below. Or message me on my Facebook, also linked below. And remember, if you watch TV shows with your spouse and you verbally correct the character's grammar, you might be autistic. And if they also do it, they also might be autistic.